Uh,
Um, go ahead. Go ahead.
because on the real test, they're not going to get into the sizes of foreign currency contracts. They're basically hedging imports and exports. That's where the EPIC or ECIP, depending on who's importing and exporting, are the only questions I know of, Dean, that are still on the Series 7. What about you? What say you?
Okay, so I'm gonna agree with Brian. Test prep vendors go total overkill. I would broaden that discussion. They go total overkill on non-equity options. So, John, I will link to, people kept asking me for a lecture on non-equity options, and I just didn't think it was worthwhile because, again, I just don't think it's material to your success. So what I did instead, I have carve-out lectures, John, and I'll link in the video description on EPIC and IPEC. EPIC stands for exporters, U.S. exporters buy puts, U.S. importers buy calls. That's a memory aid device. If it's a foreign corporation, it's the opposite. So if I'm a Japanese importer, IPEC, I buy puts on the yen. If I'm a Japanese exporter, I buy calls on the yen. I'm not being facetious. Are we clear? The US dollar is not a foreign currency. So you can eliminate two of the four answers that Brian just put out there because, it can't be a dollar. The dollar is not a foreign currency. So there are questions on non-equity options, mostly recognition. The strategy question Brian brought up, knowing that index options settle in cash is certainly there. There's a question on the VIX. I think those are better learned, John, by just doing practice questions. And then I would just warn you that almost every vendor has got you questions about the size of the contract. And neither Brian nor I think it's something you're going to encounter on the actual exam. Right?
If I can give you an example, I first studied the Series 7. I hate to admit this, Dean. You and I both took the Series 7 eons ago.
Yeah.
1993. It was in the textbook. I learned all the sizes of the contract. I learned the premiums, and none of it 32 years ago ever showed up on the test. It still isn't showing up on the test.
Well, Brian, I've had to take the Series 7 more than once because, I got out of the business, when I got back in, it was fine. We still gave scores, John.
Yeah.
And I got a 96% on the 7. And they were freaked out. I said, well, I teach this stuff and have been doing so for years. So if I was struggling with a 7, and to be honest with you, I don't think I missed those questions. Yeah, I don't even think I missed them. If I knew where they were, I'd contest them. I'd say, So other thing I would add, John, just to help you with test prep vendor questions, the contract sizes on test prep vendor questions are there, and you just move your decimal spot 2 spots left to get the premium. And that's what test prep vendors are asking. But I'm with Brian. I don't think it's on the test. By the way, I had somebody ask me, Brian, well, how do we know it's not on the test? I said, well, if Brian and I told John that it's not on the test, and it was, he's going to show back up on a Tuesday and say, you guys told me it wasn't on the test, right? So we're more accountable than test prep vendors because we have a more direct connection with test takers than do those test prep vendors.